Morning, Max.
Morning. So we're here to talk about gTLDs. As everyone knows, ICANN has opened a new application window for everything right at the dock. That includes not only strings and characters and ASCII text like we see today, but internationalized domain names and other texts. Not only is the last country for its innovation, but for its volume. There are nearly 2,000 applications. A good number of those are going to make it through to be admitted into the root. So let's just start basically, Tim, if I can come to you first, let's start with a basic question. Lots of new applicants, lots of new strings. How do you find a winner or a loser in this environment?
Well, I think when you really think about what's happening here, I mean, it really is going to give, I think, everyone, everybody in this room, individuals, companies, all internet users, it gives a lot of new choices, and it really gives a lot of, I think, new innovation. There are some really, when you have 1,900 applications, which represents, I think, around 1,400 unique strings, there are some interesting ideas out there. Some, you look at and you kind of shake your head and go, well, okay, but I think what's important is that some of these TLDs will truly kind of target a set of users that will really kind of, bring that set of users together in an online way that kind of, makes it very unique for them to be able to talk about, sell, advertise their products and services online. I mean, before, when the...
We're not really hearing it.
Oh, sorry.
Can you start again?
I was on a roll. Are you hearing this?
Test. Sorry about that. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yes. Test. It's still on. Is it me?
It's you.
Hello. I'm sitting between two lawyers. Is that the problem?
That's it. You knew it.
Test. There we go. But I think what you're going to see is that a lot of these ideas, if properly, and this is the key, and this is kind of marketing 101, but if truly branded and marketed, and if they really find their niche set of users, these can be very successful. Now listen, I'll be the first to admit, I'm right in the middle of this with our application for .green, so I'm obviously a true believer in new TLDs. But if for me to sit up here and say that all 1,400 are going to be successful, that just won't be the case. I mean, there will be some percent of these that will not be successful. And that could be for marketing reasons, technical reasons, financial reasons, you name it. But I think the ones who really have a very focused way of approaching their market and differentiating themselves with the channel, with the domain industry, and why there's really value. I mean, as an example, we applied for .green. Green's a very global concept. It's very relevant today. And we talked about before in the opening comments about how exploding mobile is. So mobile, the internet, social media is really expanding. In our case, green is very expanding. You bring those together in .green, and that can be a very successful TLD. And there's lots of other examples out there. I mean, geographic, things like .nyc. I mean, imagine, New York City and all the things that can be brought around that. So, Mason, I really think it really kind of boils down to, nothing that's rocket science. It's just really kind of around marketing, branding, and making sure that there's real value and there's a real place for your top-level domain in the market.
Oh, that's it. Am I, is this working? Can you hear me? No. I think this TLD program, it started out in a very different era. I first started doing the work on this in the middle of the last decade. The board approved it in 2008. That was a world of desktops and PCs. And now we're in a world about mobile. We're going to see, I think, tablet sales and clicks ahead of PC sales this year. And the mobile user, the app user, they're looking for minimum clicks. So I think you won't evaluate the winning TLDs just by how many registrations they get, but which ones go beyond the usual activities of running the registry well, doing marketing, all of that, but really make their registrants winners. I think some TLDs are going to turn themselves into apps because that's how they're going to connect people looking for, maybe there'll be a Doc Green app, maybe there'll be a Donuts app, to make it 1 or 2 or 3 clicks for someone to find something, to search and find it at whatever they're running. So I think it's going to, the new technology is going to bring new responsibilities and duties, and the people who make that transition for their registrants will do well.
Well, basically, it's hard to know who the winners and losers are going to be. However, I believe in general we can categorize and put it into 5 different categories of possibility of success, starting from the more probable from my perspective. The first would be the characteristic is necessity. Which of those domains are actually necessary? I would put in that category IDNs. Not only am I the IDNer here, but IDNs actually enable natural language use and enhance the abilities to many, many in a huge growing market. The second category I would call is identity. Identity, because names are actually, domains are name tags after all. So anything that has an inherent property that is an identity quality to it has an advantage, such as geos. Geos are identities of sorts, such of course as brands, all the brands that apply. These are identities. And then other particular IDNs, gTLDs, and there are many, that have identity type components to them, such as .Latino, .gay perhaps, .black, and even .green, and there are others. So that would be the second tier, identity. The third tier, I would say utility. Those domains that have a particular proponent characteristic in them that can be of an additional advantage to the population users at large. Those might be, for an example, a .bank, and I have no connection to these, but whereby perhaps if they decide they could provide a security layer for the banking industry for online banking, or a .movie, which could provide for once and for all the solution for a title .movie, and we'd all be able to know exactly where to go to when a new movie is coming out. The third tier, I would say, is novelty, which is innovation, which Phil spoke about, which is which domains the the registrar will provide additional innovative and new unthought of services, bundled or not bundled, to draw in the crowd. And the last category I would say is creativity. And that is up to the marketers, that's marketing creativity, and up to the new registries, how they will market their new gTLDs, how creative they'll be in creating one of the 4 above type of characteristics, attaching that to their product, either the necessity, sense of necessity, or identity, utility, or novelty.
Good morning. So winners and losers. Like in every walk of life, new businesses are formed every day, and more than half don't succeed. And so I don't suppose it's any different in this space that some will win and some won't win. Where we have advantages, perhaps over the older world of TLDs, is that a lot more branding needed to take place when the existing TLDs. Now, yes, there are some very generic ones, web, online, even ink is more specific, but the huge majority of new gTLD applications for very, very specific and meaningful extensions. It's not difficult to know who should apply for an SLD in .restaurant or .pizza or .law. It's obvious. Whereas in broader TLDs, the existing ones, they need branding. So I think the way things have happened up until now will change rapidly with the introduction of new TLDs, including the brands, 1,400, 600 brands. And I'm sure they're going to help lead the way in educating the world that it doesn't have to end .com anymore.
Thanks, everybody. I want to direct my next question actually first to Dan, because it applies specifically to Donuts. And we're talking about a lot of factors here: creativity, innovation, marketing. 307 applications for TLDs. That's a lot of creativity and marketing. I'll ask you, though I'm not a Donuts employee, but what did Donuts see in the marketplace that said 307 of these is a significant enough opportunity to pursue?
It's a great question. We worked on this back at the bakery for a number of years, and we discovered many metrics, different parameters by which to measure potential opportunity at the second level. And we started with in excess of 3,000 names. We finally settled on 307 that we felt met our business model, our ROI model. But obviously we think the opportunity is enormous. We're all in. Made such an enormous number of applications, and that's all we're in, not in any other aspect of the space. But if you remove, for the purpose of this illustration, the 600 brands from the 1,400 applications, that is 800 generics, and we apply for 300 of them. So there are a hell of a lot more people in this room and around the world who have applied for TLDs that also think the opportunity is enormous.
You know, and I think the other thing, as far as, I can't answer, you know, why no it's 307, but I suspect them and others that have applied for a bunch of these, and all the folks who are applying, and this is kind of said earlier, it's that innovation. What cool things are we going to see? I mean, it may be 307 TLDs, but that's 307 ideas that maybe they all start with it being a top-level domain, but what kind of app, what kind of additional applications, what more will it be able to do that will drive value? And I think there's got to be 1,900 pretty unique and good ideas, some better than others, but I think that's the thing that's kind of exciting, is that they're top-level domains to start with, but I think they are really exciting ideas that are going to change the way we see the internet used.
I'm enjoying this musical microphone. Andrew, let me come to you next, because IDNs are going to be something that most of the marketplace isn't used to seeing in the aggregate. ICANN has intentionally prioritized IDNs ahead of all the other strings. So those are going to be the first new TLDs that we see admitted into the root. Can you give us a background on IDNs? Now's probably a good time for your brief set of slides.
Well, we're going to do it old school from the chair here, but what I'm going to do is take you on a little Back to the Future tour and go back in the DNS. There is a reason why ICANN had prioritized IDNs, because this is part of the final leg in the propagation of the domain name system for all peoples in all languages. The Back to the Future is about over 25 years ago, when we started connecting machines to each other, networking. We needed a system in order for the machines to be able to identify themselves in the network. Protocols were being written, and luckily for us, those who devised those protocols decided that instead of just the numbers, they're going to use the natural human language as identifiers for these machines. And thus, the domain name system was born. And indeed, a thing of beauty it was. These developers, coming from our world here, the ASCII world, what they did is they based it, as on ASCII is, on the English language alphabet. Thus, only A to Z, the hyphen and the numbers were allowed into the root of the DNS. So over 25 years ago, what I call ASCII.com was born, and indeed, I'm going to demonstrate the thing of beauty. Maybe I'm going to ask Stan to help me here, because I didn't think I was going to be holding here. But if you can see this here, this is phase one of the DNS. This started 25 years ago, and where the domain name system, or more, that was born. And I call this ASCII.com. And here the domain name system only allowed for A to Z, the English letter alphabet, to be used as domain names. And thus we can have the following URLs. Beauty.com in English, belleza.com, Spanish, and I'm demonstrating here Portuguese, Finnish, and Dutch. So these are all ASCII-enabled URLs which were allowed from the beginning, 25 years ago, more, in the DNS. This is wonderful, thing of beauty, but there was a problem. What's the problem? That this did not accommodate all the natural language needs of all the people on the population on the planet. Now, when this started, the internet was in its infancy, and so it worked. However, as time went on, the problem was that the non-ASCII-enabled travelers were blocked to get on to the access ramps to the information superhighway those access ramps called the DNS, the domain name system, because they couldn't read the road signs, because they were in scripts that they cannot read well. So about 15 years ago, or a little bit less, there were efforts, some I was involved with, to enhance the domain name system and expand it to other natural languages. And so, test beds were created in 2000, and finally, to the left of the dot, IDNs, all natural languages, were enabled over time, and we have what we call IDN.com. This you guys are probably familiar with. And thus, the natural language needs of particularly benefited from were the extended Latin languages, those who the .com is still to the right of the dot, COM, and it's on their keyboards. They are Latin extended. So we've seen the birth of the German IDN market. The domainers here are familiar with that and how that has taken off. So you see Schönheit.com, that's German, Beauté.com, that's French, and then we have Danish, and then we have, I'm demonstrating here, Turkish and even Vietnamese. These two former last languages are languages that were Romanized at their time. So they do appear in an extended language Latin script. However, it's very important to have all the characters in the languages in order to actually extract meaning. So this was phase 2 of the development of the domain name system. It still did not accommodate all the people whose scripts did not include any A to Z. Now those people happen to be the majority of the people on the planet. And now we have finally, after over 25 years, with the new gTLDs, among them we are finally going to open up the right of the dot to all natural human languages. And so, ICON has prioritized said, and we are this year going to have the final leg, which is IDN.IDN. And thus people all over the world, particularly of course, this is Asia-centric as you see, such as China, Miei Tianka is beauty.com in Chinese, Russian, which is Cyrillic script, also used, Bulgarian, Macedonians, Ukrainians. Hindi is opening up. This is .com in Hindi, to the right of the dot. Thai, and on the bottom I'm demonstrating Hebrew, which is yofi.com, or they say yofi.com. But this is critical, but Hebrew, Arabic, and Farsi are right to left languages. And they are particularly needed to have the .com to be able to be demonstrated, which is to us right of the dot, but is to them left of the dot. So at the bottom, the left of the dot is the TLD. So finally, after 30 years, we have solved, we are this year, incorporating the final leg of the quest of the DNS to accommodate all natural language needs. This is big, and this is huge, and this is happening now because over half of the online population of the world live here now. 25 years ago, not. 10 years ago, not. But now, half of online users are here in the Asian markets, including Japanese, Korean, etc. And internet penetration here is only 25%, while here it's 75%. So you know where this is going. You can have the bandwidth, traffic on bandwidth on the cables. Over the last 5 years, the intra-Asia traffic has tripled, while the historically active, the transatlantic, has only risen slightly. So this is the future, and the future is now. Thank you.
There will not be a test on this later, right?
No.
Sure. That's very helpful, Andrew. If I can just stay with you for one more minute. 25% of the world's population is now online in those native languages.
50.
50.
Oh,
So-
in those yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So when
25.
IDNs come online, how big a flood of traffic are you going to see from those marketplaces? And what does that mean for people here who might want to invest in IDNs?
Well, as I said, there's over 1 billion people online already from these language markets. Only 27% is the penetration level. They are going to go coming, in the next 5 years, you're going to see an explosion. And as the new people coming online, they are going to be domain users, and you're going to see this propensity towards the utility of IDN. So this is a huge opportunity for domainers and others to be able to connect. There's going to be a fierce battle for the mind space, for the mind share, we call it, of the users, because there are going to be an additional hundreds at least, if not over 1,000 new gTLDs launched. And so mindshare is critical. And these people are best reached and mindshare achieved using their own natural language.
And just one thing I would add from a timing standpoint, I suspect that, you know, if you go back, if you've been here at this event for the last few years, probably the last, I suspect at least 2 years, there's been a new gTLD panel, and you're probably saying, okay, but they still aren't here yet. Well, they are. Mason mentioned this, because of the importance of the internationalization that IDNs bring, ICANN has placed a priority on those. And so there were 116, I think, applications that were IDNs. Those, in the order of these going, they will go first. So as far as, you know, coming attractions, if all goes well, which, you know, has been a challenge sometimes with this process, we could very well see these by the end of the first half, you know, summertime, for the first IDNs to be going in the route. So they are coming. So.
And just to add, there are political reasons for ICANN to prioritize these. I think everyone's aware of the ITU meeting in Dubai just 2 months ago, where and there's still ongoing concerns that ICANN might be supplanted with its multi-stakeholder model by a much more government-centric approach. So it's very important for political coverage in particular that ICANN respond to the desire of parts of the world that are underserved by the current addressing system to roll out these IDNs first and make the internet much more usable in parts of the world that have been critical of ICANN management.
I just want to add to that, which is absolutely correct, as somebody who's been involved for many years in this process. I think it's even deeper than that. I believe that ICANN identified many years ago the need to open up the DNS to full internationalization, and it was a huge task, and there's a lot of politics in order to do that. Just think about the natural language conflicts and who owns Chinese, and never mind the French and all this stuff. And you know, World War III could have broken out of this. So it took a long time as a result of the politics, and never mind the technical standards of Puni Code, and without boring you with all that stuff. But the point I'm trying to make, the connection, there's a historical connection in my view to gTLDs. I have a hunch of many years ago that once ICANN realized we have to open this thing up, and there's so many languages. I just showed you a few of the top of languages. There are many languages. Eventually, all these languages are going to get TLDs. So we're going to have to open this thing up. Once I think they realize that they're going to have to go there, I think what happened is, well, if we're already gone, let's do it. Let's open it all up from the beginning, and allow other innovation to come in while we're already innovating.
Just, if I could, a quick show of hands here. How many in the room are either already have investigated investing in IDN domain names or are considering doing so? Okay, a few hands. Interesting. Okay, so obviously there's going to be a lot of competition now for traffic, for the attention of the user. This is just a very competitive environment. In previous discussions that we've had on new TLDs, there have been concerns on the part of the domain investor community that if the wave comes over the beach with all these new TLDs, the value of my.com investment is going to be going down. Dan, is that going to be the case, or is it opposite, in fact?
Well, I guess that's the question on the minds of lots of people in this community and in this hotel right now. And, you know, we're predicting the future, so the answer is yes and no. I think in the short term, the beachfront properties will remain the beachfront properties. In fact, if comms are the beachfront properties, they may even go up in value in the short term. What happens when, to use that analogy, .hotel and .beach and others become available remains to be seen. But you know, every business needs to evolve. Those that do best, you know, evolve the most. And you know, we need to see some of that innovation. But you know, the domain investor, domain broker community has got, I think, great opportunities in this new space if they stick to what they know, what they've proven to be good at, I don't think that there's going to be immediate natural type-in traffic to these new gTLDs. Some people think it's many, many years away. I don't think it's quite that far, particularly with the brands going on global television and telling the world that it can end .bmw or .hsbc. But nonetheless, there's not going to be, it's not going to be simple just to plug a feed from Google or Yahoo or Bing into a new TLD, SLD, and expect that it's a road paved with gold. I don't see that. But for those domain investors and brokers who want to ensure future innovation and evolution, they should look at the TLDs that are so specific and match that they've been successful in those areas before.
Well, I kind of want to let you in on the little secret of the 1900 TLDs. I alluded it to before. The new gTLDs, actually there's a handful in there that are not new at all. And I actually demonstrated this to you. Amongst the 1900, those are the IDNs. These, to the right of the dot here, these have been used by natural language people for 15 plus years already. These are pre-existing brands. These are .com. They are the transliteration of .com into these languages. So here there's a morphing of the two aspects. These are new gTLDs, but they're not new. There are 15-year-old kids in Thailand who are named Kum, after Kum, which exploded on the marketplace 15 years ago. And so it's a unique situation whereby you have new gTLDs that are not new at all, that are pre-branded, and our indications, our research indicate there's already type-in traffic lurking underneath the surface.
And I guess just briefly what I would add is I think in a lot of cases as far as the value, it comes down, keeps coming back to content. I mean, hotel.com versus find.hotel, right? Whichever one ends up having the best content, the best user experience is the one that's going to be more valuable. So I think there's com doesn't have to go down in value or up in value in these. I mean, I just think it really, today's value that a lot of you create is around traffic, it's around content, and I think that will continue to be the case.
Yeah, and I do want to know everything I'm saying here unless I reference it otherwise, or my personal views, not on behalf of anybody I'm representing. I think there's going to be much more creation of new value at some of these new TLDs than any kind of rapid erosion of .com values. There will be change over time. I don't think we can predict right now what it was if a particular .com domain benefited from artificial scarcity. That may go away, but I think the increase in value overall from domain investor standpoint is going to far outweigh whatever erosion occurs over time with some .com properties.
And my views are Phil's views as well. So.
So staying on the competition theme, Phil, I want to come to you with this. One of the premises that ICANN staked the new TLD program on was increased consumer choice and competition. I think a lot of applicants and a lot of participants in this industry were surprised to see a number of applicants, Google is one, Amazon in some cases is another, to say, yes, I'd like to apply for that gTLD, however, it's going to be a single registrant TLD, meaning there's going to be only one domain name and the registry operator will control it. What does this mean for competition and the whole idea of what ICANN's up to?
Give me that microphone.
Watch out. Pass it on down. This is definitely a personal view, right?
No, this is, thank you for asking me that question, Mason. ICANN's kind of gotten away with this easy assumption that more TLDs automatically translates into increased competition and innovation. But of course we have a program now, on reveal day we saw Donuts was the #1 applicant, 307. Number 2 is Google with 101, of which 90 are for non-trademark dictionary word terms. They've got a mix of single registrant applications where they say that qualified registrants will be allowed to register. They don't define how they're going to define who can go to those TLDs, and some are open. Amazon is number 3, I forget the exact number, close behind Google. Every one of their applications is for closed registrants, closed generics besides their trademarks. So this single registrant is one issue, but without identifying the client or the strings involved, I've been recently retained by someone who's in contention with Google, and anyone who knows the program knows that where agreement can't be reached, it's ultimately resolved by an auction. And Google, besides being the dominant search and advertising firm on the internet, has $50 billion in cash. So if you're in contention, you can't beat them. Ultimately, whether their applications are best for innovation or competition doesn't matter because they have the fattest wallet. So we're going to be bringing some facts about their applications to policymakers. We have no desire to delay the overall program, but frankly, if you're an applicant up against them, you can't beat them if they want one of these because they can just outbid you. You know, they control search, 80% of all search in the US, 93% in the EU, and you know, the Federal Trade Commission just concluded investigation of their search practices. They did not bring an antitrust suit. All they got from Google was a voluntary commitment, which is unenforceable legally, to stop doing a few things, but nobody looked at the TLD program. Let me give you an example of what they're doing. In one critical area, online video distribution, huge area growing that Google already dominates through YouTube, and they have an application in for .YouTube, which is their right, and it's their right to get a waiver of the code of conduct to run it as a single registrant if they want to. It's their trademark. But they've also applied for 8 other terms related to online video distribution. Again, they can buy them all up if they want them. .film, .move, .movie, .tube, .channel, .show, .music, and .live. The only one they missed was .video, and Amazon has applied for that one as a single registrant, and they've got not 50 billion, but they have several billion, so they can win that one if they want. Now, how does competition benefit if Google buys up every TLD related to online video distribution, if no one else can get in there, and where terms and conditions restrict the capability of any registrant to set up a vertical search engine that competes against Google's general search engine? These are questions that need to be addressed. Another one that raises concern, Google has applied for .search and they want a single registrant exemption. .search is, of all of them, should be the one that Google does not control and that is open to everyone, because this is the best term available for setting up competitive vertical search engines. So these questions need to be asked. Also, the FTC settlement, besides being unenforceable, explicitly includes, it only covers covered web pages, and in Google's commitment letter, it explicitly excludes video search. So even by Google's own commitments, they're allowed to prefer their own TLDs and their own video search services over all others when they present search results to users. One last thing, very interesting. While Google has $50 billion, they apparently did not have $2,400 to buy lottery tickets for the prioritization. Back in December here in LA, ICANN held a lottery to get prioritization. Most people who want to compete want to get to market first. They want first mover advantage. 141 applications did not buy tickets. Most of those are for trademark.brands that were probably defensive applications by companies that aren't that sure they want to use this, but they wanted to be on the first round. They never know if there's going to be a second round, when it will be. So they're not in a rush to get to market. But 1/6 of the applications for which tickets were not bought were Google applications, 24 of them, all for dictionary terms in which they have no trademarks. 22 of the 24, they're in contention with multiple parties. So by not buying a lottery ticket, no matter how good the numbers of all the other contenders, they all have to wait because Google deliberately placed itself at the back of the line for ultimate evaluation. So we think there's some serious questions that should be looked at, because we know these delegations, when they incur, they're basically forever. You know, Google's argument with FTC, competition's only a click away with search engines. If you don't like Google, go to Bing, go to Firefox, whatever. As I said with the video and another broad important categories, they're trying to, it looks like they're trying to make sure that competition is not any clicks away. Also with search engines, they said, well, the technology changes so fast, you can't regulate it. But running a registry doesn't change very fast, and these contracts are essentially forever. There's an initial 10-year term. There's a presumptive right of renewal. So basically, we think there's some questions to be raised here, particularly with the Google applications, about whether in a program that only uses auctions to resolve contention, whether real competition will result in these important categories. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you raised some interesting questions, and I just feel maybe putting a different perspective.
Sure.
Didn't know this was coming, and I'm certainly not here representing Google. But you know, people are making a whole bunch of assumptions as to you know, what they may be trying to do, and I, for one, certainly don't know, and I'm pretty sure that there aren't many people in this room that do know, and even if they've completely formulated their plans. I don't think that the fact that they've got $50 billion or whatever they may happen to have in reserves is anything that frightens me or should frighten anyone else. I'm quite sure they didn't get to where they are by being frivolous with their money, and they're not going to spend $50 billion to make sure they get .dog, which is on their list. So, you know, I just look at what, and this is really just my personal opinion, I just look at the way the search market has evolved over the years. And I remember, I originally come from the UK, I remember when search engines started, there were like aggregators for search. I remember a company called Copernic, I don't know if they're still in existence, where you would do a search and it would bring out results from a variety of different search engine companies. Why are Google handling 80% of the searches in the US and 92-3% in Europe? Because they've proven they're the best at giving the browser the most appropriate result to the query that they asked. I don't think that this new TLD program for them, and again, it's just my opinion, is you know, going to change the way that they have built one of the world's most phenomenal businesses. So I think competition and choice has been brought to the marketplace. No, it's not utopia, but it's, I think it's going to be pretty close to it. Registrants out there are going to get the opportunity to register names in short, specific, and meaningful TLDs, which they haven't been able to do for a long, long time. I mean, the reason why this program is here is because there's saturation. They're victims of their own success, if you like, in the .com space. I remember talking to somebody, CEDO, many years ago, did a report, and this may be in 2005, 6, something like that, that said 98 out of every 100 searches for .com ended in failure, you know, because all the good names were taken. That was then. There were probably 25, 30 million names in the zone. Now there's 120 million names in the zone. So that is why this program has been launched, and there will be competition and choice amongst registries, registrars, and for registrants.
Well, just to very quickly respond, I like Google. Google does a lot of very cool things. I use their search engine. I think they have excellent positions on internet governance and other policy issues, but anyone who reads the results of the FTC report knows that they're also a very aggressive competitor and will use every advantage they have. And we're by no means, they're perfectly capable of answering the questions we're going to be asking. They do spend $1 million per month lobbying in Washington, so they have the capability. But we think these questions should be raised, and we're certainly not saying that they should be restricted only to their trademarks, but there are concerns when a program which is auction-oriented creates the possibility that they could buy up every term that relates to very important categories, if they wish to.
Yeah,
there ought to be some other registry operators in those spaces.
Well, and there may well be. You know, those names that you talk about that are not their trademarks, they are in contention with us and with others. I mean, app, for example, is the most contested string. I think there are 13 of us in that cluster. So we'll see what happens. Just to, again, I don't want to be seen here as a spokesman for Google. I'm certainly not that. But if you consider, and you know this well, Phil, and other people have been in the process a long time, this has taken years To get the guidebook to the stage where it was approved took many, many years. And for those people who understand ICANN at all, it is a consensus-making group with a very, very diverse set of communities that make up all the different constituencies within ICANN. These are the rules, and we could have applied for closed TLDs, we could have applied for community TLDs. We chose not to do that. Google have applied for some open and some closed, Amazon in their own right. Nobody's broken any rules. You know, I believe that now that the whistle has blown and the game has started, we should abide by those rules and, you know, win, lose, or draw.
And last comment, I'm in no way saying that Google has broken any of ICANN's rules, and people have said to me, Phil, well, a few people I discussed this with said, they're playing by the guidebook allows us, what's wrong? I said, well, that's the guidebook, but national competition laws trump ICANN's rules.
I just want to add, as somebody who's been observing this process, ICANN unfolding the gTLDs from pre-inception, that this was a momentous task. It was, as Dan said, community-driven, consensus-driven. I just alluded before on some of the politics and the linguistic conflicts and technical conflicts. This is a major, major accomplishment, which is why it took, amongst other reasons, it took so long. And in my book, and there, of course, were going to be some deficiencies, but this is a major accomplishment and actually a small miracle that things have come together in this fashion where the domain name system can open up for the whole world.
Here, here.
Okay, in a minute. Hello? Hello? Okay, thank you. So last question, I think here from the stage, and then we're going to open it up to the floor. But Tim, you get the last question. .green is a cause-driven TLD. We see other ones as examples from other applicants. I can think of .gay, for example. In other words, something other than just the availability of names is driving the application for that string. What does that mean for potential registrants, particularly the people in this room who tend to have an investment mindset in TLDs? What does their participation in your TLD do for green causes, and then vice versa? What do green causes then return back to the investor community? Or it doesn't even have to be .green, it could be other cause-driven TLDs as well.
So I think, I mean, that's a great question, because I think it kind of goes back to some of the things we've already talked about. I mean, a lot of people, you know, in this room are probably, and I'll use green as the example because that's obviously the one that I'm closest to. A lot of folks here, when you think about what green means, and it's environment, it's social, it's the economy, it's health. There's a lot of things that means around the world. It's sustainability. There's a lot of individuals that are practicing green kinds of activities. There are a lot of companies. And the thing is about the companies is that there are a lot of companies out there that are doing things that are very green, whether it's in their business practices, whether it's corporate social responsibility, whether it's products and services that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. I mean, there's a couple of examples. I mean, both Walmart and Target have tens of thousands of green products that I don't think the average person kind of equates, you know, kind of that big company kind of thing. And so where I think the benefit to this community comes into these cause-driven TLDs, as Mason mentioned, is that it really kind of helps bring, I think, attention to what is going on in those specific areas, whether it's green, whether it's .gay, whether it's others. There's a very, I think, strong feeling, you know, activities and thoughts around that and why they are important. And then that can turn around by bringing that, and what better way to get the word out than the internet? I mean, the internet and its expansion and around the world, and again, a lot of these terms are very global. What better way to get that word out there than on the internet, via the social media, via the mobile? And therefore, it brings attention to it, it heightens the awareness, which creates value. And value is what all of a sudden when you're registering a green-oriented domain name, all of a sudden, if you're building a website around activities that relate to green, people are going to see that, they're going to start searching for, and the more people today are searching for green products and services. That's happening. But when all of a sudden there's a go-to place for some of these activities, I think it really helps kind of the value that those TLDs bring to the market.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you all. Let's open it up to the floor. I know Corinne is in the back there who can help out with, I'm sorry, there's microphones up here. There's one here as well. So if anyone would like to throw a question out, we'd certainly welcome it. Hi. Try again. There you go.
Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Joan Irvine. I'm with I4. We do the policy development for the .xx domain. And one of the things that hasn't been mentioned is that there is going to be around content much more best practices that would happen within before about.com. And one of the procedures that for the TOSs, the other areas that people are going to have to deal with, especially domainers, when you're looking to sell these domains, the requirements of who they're selling them to.
That's a very good question. Anyone want to tackle that? Dan?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I heard the whole question, but in terms of, are you referring to any rules that may apply to somebody looking to sell a domain in this?
Content around.
Right. So I think the answer is it does depend on each registry. Our registry, we propose an open registry, depending on how the government, the GAC element constituency with ICANN insists, and ICANN insists upon rules being applied to different TLDs. Obviously, one has to comply with those. But apart from that, I don't see that there's any, hurdles that make it any more complicated to, sell a name in the secondary market than currently exists. I don't know if that answers your question.
I would just add that unless there's some stipulation in the particular contract between that registry and ICON when the gTLD is delegated.
Well, and the other thing is too, I think, and you're all used to this, but and I'm not sure this is specifically getting to your question, but there's going to be a lot of the same kinds of launch phases that I guess we've all become used to, the IP trademark phase and things like that. So there's a lot of things built in around rights protection, around trademark protection that is kind of normal and customary that we've all kind of gotten used to.
There's a lot that's still not quite settled with this program, and these restrictions are one of them. We talked about single registrant. The new TLD board subcommittee met recently. They had 5 issues before them, and they kicked the can down the road on all 5, including single registrant. Now, my own view is that certainly communities can restrict registrations to members of that community. That the exemption from the code of conduct for a single registrant, closed generic, should only be granted to trademark, to .brands. That is not appropriate. There may be other generic terms that relate to regulated industries or professions where for consumer protection or security reasons, there may be some restrictions on who can register. .bank would be one. There's an application for the American Bankers Association Financial Roundtable. That's an issue that the GAC is weighing in on. So we don't know all the answers yet, but these issues are still in play, even as ICANN is moving to implement the program technically and implement the evaluation of applications and then contention. There are all these still unresolved policy questions which are important, but we don't have the answers yet, and it was rather disappointing to see that board committee punt on all 5 issues before them, that maybe they shouldn't have resolved every one, but it was discouraging to see them just defer again because we are in 2013 and suppose we're going to have delegations later this year, so there's not much time left.
Go ahead.
Well, we applied for .mobile. So thanks for that question. To the first point, the confusing similarity panel was due, there's a couple of companies that were retained by ICANN, and to look at a very clear distinction with the rule book to do with whether two strings would be deemed to be confusing to the average internet user. And that work was commissioned and was done, and it would seem that the results haven't been to the entire satisfaction of ICANN, because they were due to announce the results of that confusing similarity in November, and then in December, and then in January, and now they tell us March the 1st, and as an incurable optimist, I look forward to seeing that happen. But one should, I think, one needs to look at, you know, how does the confusing similarity cause harm if car and cars both get delegated to the root? And this is obviously part of the complication that they have to resolve. And again, that leads me to the second point, and you use the example of mobile and Mobi. You know, where's the harm? We obviously feel that there's a market for it in addition to .mobi, and the proof of the pudding will be in the eating as time goes by. But, you know, if we're wrong, where's the harm?
I just want to add, ICON does have some experience in the confusingly similar category for years. It came from the IDN side when Bulgaria put in their application for their Bulgaria in Cyrillic for Bulgarian, and it looks like a B and an R. And so somewhat, we could say, confusingly similar to .br, which is the country code for Brazil. And it was denied. And the whole country of Bulgaria, president writing to ICON letters included, were very upset, and they did not get their .br in Cyrillic, and are now in the process, well, .Cyrillic BR, and now in the process of applying for a different country code, IDN country code. So ICON is quite familiar with this process. Confusingly similar from a legal perspective and in the domain perspective is a very intense issue. There's how is it confusingly similar? Is it audio? Is it visual? Is it content? Is it meaning? Across language markets. It's a quite complicated issue. So ICON has been dealing with this already for years through the IDNs, and they, I believe, will continue to evolve to do so for a while. Yeah.
Well, there's another critical issue that ICANN is way behind on resolving. Now, if they limit confusingly similar strings to those that are visually or orally how it sounds very close, it results in very limited elimination or contention between those parties. But some people have written that they should lump in general categories like .buy and .shop should be, and .retail should all be looked at as the same. And if they ever did that, I think there'd be a riot among the applicants, because we'd shrink everything down to a very small number of huge contention sets. So we are awaiting this answer, and we hope some of these answers come out before we all trek off to Beijing in April.
Go ahead. Andrew, IDN Global.
Can anyone?
Yep.
Yeah. Andrew IDN Global, and I'm very interested. We do a lot of work with emerging markets, and so it was really interesting your discussion around IDNs and the amount of investment that's going into emerging markets. Very encouraging, because one of our clients is not Africa. I'm interested, though, you talked about this as a growing global marketplace. I'm thinking about the amount of competition that may be coming in the future from the global south, both in the investing world and in other aspects of this. Can you talk a little bit about that, about more people getting involved in this world as well?
So you're asking about more people getting involved in?
In the domain world, in the investing side of things. Traditionally, I think it's been more the province of the United States, Europe.
Yes, yes.
But it's coming online. The Chinese know their market.
Of course, there's a domain awakening in China.
So what I'm interested in is how this whole new gTLD process is going to light up the global south as well.
Yes, of course, it is lighting it up, and as I tried to allude before, with the numbers as far as active bandwidth that's going on, how it tripled intra-Asia over the last 5 years. That's what it's lighting up. It's lighting up traffic. Once traffic lights up, entrepreneurs and investors show up and want a seat at the table and join the party. So we're seeing expansion all over, particularly Asia and China. You're going to see there's domain companies and monetizers and that are popping up and trying all new kinds of systems all over. We are going to see a kind of a domaining part B, I call it, which was started here historically in the United States, in the late 90s. And I believe we're going to see that extensively over the next decade in all these other markets. And there are investors and things coming to market. We actually do a project. We develop a lot because we have a lot of properties, and you got to develop because that is the main, that's their main value. Location, 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 but you got to build for it to have value. So we're actually partnering up with many different language markets people develop in their own market, and there's a lot of energy.
It's a great question, Andrew. I think, I don't pretend to predict what's going to happen in the rest of the world. Obviously, in English-speaking domains through .com, opportunities may have not been available to people in other parts of the world. And this is one of the benefits of the new gTLD program. And as a company, whilst most of our names are in English, because, like the advice I give to people, stick to what you know, we've hedged. And 20 of our TLDs are not in English, including 4 IDNs in Chinese. Our first one's number 11 in the prioritization draw. That'll be in the first week. I can't wait for that to happen. But we've applied for strings in French and German and Spanish too.
Andrew, thank you. Hello? Hello? Okay. Andrew, thank you for that question. I think with that, we're going to wrap things up. I want to...
Just want to say one last, I don't think I need the mic. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank Oversea, not just for inviting me, but for being a founding member and a continuing board member of the Internet Commerce Association. And everyone in this room who's a registrant and a domain investor should be thanking Oversea, because my main work on behalf of ICA in this new TLD program has been made to make sure that the new Uniform Rapid Suspensions, one of the new rights protection mechanisms, is really just a narrow supplement to the UDRP that preserves essential due process rights for registrants and isn't a $300 alternative to the UDRP that runs over registrants. So Oversea has been critical in supporting ICA's work from the beginning, and I think they deserve appreciation for that.
Here.
Indeed. Yeah. Thank you. All right, with my thanks to the panel, thank you for your expert opinions and input, and thank you to the audience for participating, and I think it's lunchtime. Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you very much for an excellent panel discussion. Feel free to come up and exchange business cards with our panelists. That's what they're here for. Lunch is outside in the main driveway area. Come back here at 2 o'clock for our next session, which is parking alternatives beyond, or monetization options beyond parking. At lunch,